All right, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to Horseshoe Crabs. My name is Ipsita, and I'm a public programs intern for UGA Marine Extension and Georgia Sea Grant. We conduct research, education, and outreach for healthy coastal ecosystems and communities. So with that, I am going to go ahead and start the program. So today's program, like I said, is about horseshoe crabs, and horseshoe crabs have been around for a very long time. And so they're sometimes called living fossils. Now, where do they live? Well, at least for the Atlantic horseshoe crabs, they live all along the East Coast in a marine environment. So they spend most of their time in the water, but they do come up to nest by the thousands on the Georgia coast during springtime high tides. The females will come up and dig a hole and lay eggs, about 90,000, if you can believe it, while the males will fertilize them. Horseshoe crabs are scavengers, which means they'll eat small organisms on the bottom of the seafloor, such as worms and small fish. Shorebirds and other migratory animals will eat horseshoe crab eggs, as you can see right here. They're the small green eggs that you see. And here you have those small green eggs again, and the shorebirds eating the horseshoe crab eggs. So now that you've learned a bit about where they're from and what they eat, let's identify some body parts. How many legs does the horseshoe crab have? You can go ahead and put this into the chat box, and we'll see what people say. All right, it looks like we have some answers coming in. We have some answers for 8 legs, which is a great guess. We have more answers for 8 legs. We have some for 10 legs. And again, you can put those in. And let's count them together. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then if you can find this little one right there, that's 6. So they have 6 on one side, which means they have 12 legs altogether. If you take both sides, that's a lot of legs. So yeah, the next question, where is the mouth on the horseshoe crab? Again, go ahead and type those into the chat box so we can figure out where the mouth is. We have some answers. We have some people saying at the top. We have other people saying at the bottom of the crab. Other people are saying in the center. So we have a lot of areas that we think this mouth could be. This mouth is actually right in the center here, right in between those legs. So what they'll do, they'll take those legs, curve their food inwards, grab it, curve it in, and that's how they'll eat, which you'll get to see later in the program. This is general anatomy for the horseshoe crab. This is just to show you a top and bottom view of it, and we'll go more in depth in this slide. Now, horseshoe crabs belong to a group of arthropods called Chelicerata, which means they are related to spiders and scorpions, but they're actually not real crabs. Their top, they have an exoskeleton. They're invertebrates. Unlike us, we have bones and skeleton and like bones to help us move our fingers. But these guys have a shell called a carapace. So they're invertebrates. Horseshoe crabs also have gills underneath to help the organism breathe, which you can see right here. They have 12 legs for movement and to help them eat, and their mouth is located in the middle of their body on the underside. Horseshoe crabs also have a tail called a telson, which you can see right there, and these help the crab flip over if it's on its back. Juveniles will actually sometimes use this tail to swim upside down. Horseshoe crabs also have a pair of compound eyes at the top of the crab, allowing it to see its surroundings, like a fly and other insects use. those eyes are right here, those bumps. And then additionally, they also have 8 other simple eyes around its body. Some simple eyes are right behind the compound eye, at the front of the animal, on the tail, or underneath the crab. These help to see light and dark and helps with the circadian rhythm of the organism, and probably even more stuff that we haven't found out yet. A pair of simple eyes is right there, if you wanted an example. Additionally, horseshoe crabs will molt like in this picture, and then you can also tell the difference between male and female just based on different body parts. And then finally, I'd like to end off with a fun fact. Horseshoe crabs have a blue copper-based blood that is used in medical research to test for pathogens and bacterial impurities, which I find really cool. So at this time, I'm going to hand it over to Kayla for the live animal portion of the program.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ipsita. So we're going to meet a live horseshoe crab, and we're also going to see some real molts. So these are things that you could find if you're exploring on the beaches here in Georgia, or really anywhere on the East Coast of the United States. So before we transition to the props, I did want to show you on this slide, if you look at the image there on the left-hand side, that's a picture of molting. So basically, because it has that hard outer part of its body, when the horseshoe crab needs to get bigger, the way that it does that is it'll actually crack open the top of its exoskeleton there, suck in water, and then it'll wiggle out of that old exoskeleton. And so that dark part that you're seeing is actually the live horseshoe crab wiggling out, and then the lighter brown part is actually the old exoskeleton that gets left behind. So Ipsita's going to share my screen, and I'll show you what that looks like when that exoskeleton is left behind, that molt. So one of my colleagues, Dodie Sanders, has done a lot of programs on horseshoe crabs. So this is from her collection of different molts. But this is one, it's a little hard to see on the webcam. They're super tiny. These are only 2 to 3 months old. I know you can't really see them, but just to give you a sense of scale of how tiny these animals are when they first hatch out of the eggs. This one is closer to 4 months. And then this would be closer to over a year. So they're continuing to molt every time they need to get bigger. So throughout their life, they're going to keep molting 16 to 17 times until they're about 9 or 10 years old, until they're as big as they're going to get. And then that's called their terminal molt. And they'll keep that exoskeleton for the rest of their life. And you can kind of tell if you're out on the beach, one that has a terminal molt, because it will have sometimes all kinds of things growing on it, barnacles and other organisms. This is an example of a larger molt that you might find on the beach. And the key giveaway that it's a molt and not a dead one is if you look right up there, that little crack is where the animal came out. And the other thing that I wanted to show you before we meet the live one is we talked about compound eyes. But if you're not sure what a compound eye is, usually if you come to visit us in the aquarium, you might look through something like this. So I'm going to try and stick this up to the webcam. It's not an exact replica, but do you see how it's showing lots of different images? You might see lots of different parts of my face. So that's somewhat similar to what the horseshoe crab might be seeing. So when I bring out the live one, keep that in mind, because they can actually see about 3 feet away. So the horseshoe crab will be looking back at you all on the screen, just as you are looking at it. So give me just a moment to get the live horseshoe crab. I'm here at the UGA Marine Education Center and Aquarium, and we do have a public touch tank, which is where this horseshoe crab lives. It's an ambassador animal. So I'm going to go grab it out of the tank, and I'll be right back. But if you have any questions in the meantime, you can add those in the chat box to Ipsita, and I'll answer them when I get back. Ipsita, did we have any questions?
We did. So we had a question come up. Do the horseshoe crabs bite?
Great question. They do not. They don't even have any teeth. So let me show you the underside. And let me tell you before I show it to you that this is a really gentle animal. It's going to look really wild, but super gentle. So this is the underside of the animal. And you can see lots of movement there. But if you focus right in the center, that's where the mouth is. And those furry parts at the bottom of the legs are called gnathobases. So that's what they use to start to grind up their food, but they don't even have teeth. And it kind of looks like they have claws, but it's not sharp. Like if you've ever held a blue crab before, you can see it's not sharp at all because, again, they're eating small worms and small clams, so they don't need to have sharp claws or teeth. Any other observations about this animal or things that you're noticing? Questions?
We had another question. Why is their blood so antibacterial?
Oh, that is a fantastic question. It's an adaptation that helps them survive in an environment that has lots of bacteria. So they live on the bottom of the sea floor or in rivers. And so having that special compound in their blood helps them to survive getting sick. Does anyone know if this one is a male or a female? Or have any guesses?
We had a couple guesses come up for male.
Yes, that's fantastic. So there's a couple of different ways that you can tell. One is by looking at this front walking leg. This is called a pedipalp. And if you can see, this one is so active today, but if you look at that front walking leg, it looks like it's a hook or a boxing glove. So that lets you know that it's a male. The other way that you can tell, like let's say you found part of the exoskeleton on the beach, but you didn't have the legs to look at, is at the shape of this front part. This is called the prosoma, this front part here. And do you see how it's kind of curved like this? That lets you know it's a male. If it was female, it would be flat. And then also if you find, like if you're on the beach and you find just this part of the shell, if there's a big black or dark brown patch right here, that'll also let you know that it's a female. Any other questions or observations, Ipsita?
We did have a question. Do they poke with their tail?
I am so glad that someone asked that. We get that question a lot because it does look kind of pokey, doesn't it? But no, this is called a telson, and it's not used for defense. Its main purpose is to help the animal flip over. So if you can see, its little legs can't get past the edge of its shell here. So they have to come up on land to lay their eggs, which is kind of a risky business if you're an animal that breathes with gills. So its gills are down here. So if a wave flips it over, if it couldn't flip itself over, it might bake in the sun, and that wouldn't be good for it. So instead, it takes this tail or this telson, and it'll stick that in the sand and use it like a lever to flip itself right side up. So that's the main purpose of this telson. The juvenile ones, when they're really small, it's super cute. Sometimes they'll actually flip over on their back, and they'll use this telson almost like a little rudder to move around. That's the main purpose. If you do find a live one, you don't want to pick it up by the tail, though, or the telson, not because it'll hurt you, but because they only have one little muscle right there. So I always like to hold it with both hands, or at least up on this part here. Okay, I'm going to grab one other horseshoe crab for you to see up close. And remember what we talked about on how to tell if it's male or female? So I'm going to need your help to figure out on this next one if it's male or female. So we're looking at the front of the shell. We're looking at that front walking leg and the shape of it. What do you all think?
We had a lot of guesses come in for female.
Yes, you all are absolutely correct. This is a female. And what I'd like to do now is show you her getting a little bit of a snack. So normally feeding days are Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at the aquarium for a lot of the animals. But because our programs are on Thursdays, the curators were kind enough to make us a small snack to give her. We collect all of the food that they eat out of the river. So we use our trawling vessel, so that way they're eating things that they might eat naturally. So I'm gonna hold this up to the webcam. Can anyone tell what's in this container? What kind of food that is? I'll give you a hint. They're both things that people can eat too.
We had guesses for fish, chicken, and shrimp.
Yes, those are great questions, or great guesses. You're absolutely right. So it is shrimp and some fish. So what I'm going to do, and normally, this animal in the wild would be walking right side up. this way. And that's why its mouth is on the bottom, so that it can find its food along the bottom. However, at the aquarium, to make sure that every single individual animal is getting enough food, we hold them this way so we can actually see the mouth, and we're gonna place the food right there in the center where those gnatho bases are, where that furry part of the legs are, so that it can work that food down. See if I can get you all a little bit of a better angle. She must have been hungry. She already ate it all. Oh, look at her go. So we'll go ahead and we will let her digest. And I'm actually going to see if any of the other horseshoe crabs would like a snack as well. And while I'm doing this, if anyone has questions or additional observations, please feel free to add those, and Ipsita will let me know. So there you can see it. And I don't know if you can tell, but those very front two legs, this front pair, are called chelicerae, and that's actually what makes them closely related to things like spiders and scorpions. That also helps them really move the food towards that center part of their body. And I think we have time for one more horseshoe crab to get a snack.
We had a question. What happens if you find a white shell?
Oh, great question. So a white horseshoe crab shell?
I think so, yes.
So that might mean that it's a molt, because they're a little bit thinner. And so that might mean that the live horseshoe crab is out moving around somewhere and it's left behind that old exoskeleton. The other thing that can happen is that anything that's left in the sun for a long time can bleach a little bit. So that might also be part of the shell that was left there for a long time. And so it gives you a clue that it's been out in the sun and on the beach for a while. So our last piece of fish. Wonderful. Well, I'm going to go ahead and put the horseshoe crab back. And we're going to go ahead and transition to our next activity, unless there were any last questions that people were wondering. Ipsita is going to share her screen. Oh, I was just looking in the chat. So it looks like someone was asking maybe about a snail shell as opposed to the horseshoe crab. Okay, so now that we've seen a live horseshoe crab, and we've learned about some of its incredible adaptations that it has, or in other words, its different body parts and behaviors that help it survive and thrive in the ocean, I need all of your help as the audience at home to get some great ideas, and we're going to build an imaginary invertebrate together. So the way this is going to work, I'm going to ask you a series of polls. You're going to answer them, and then Ipsita is going to draw in live time whatever creature we come up with, and then we'll name it at the end. And if you want to do this at home, we've included some prompts that we'll add in the chat box at the end, and you can do your own at home too. So the first thing that we need to ask when we're thinking about an animal and what adaptations it might have is, what environment does it need to survive in? So my first question to you is, what area does this animal live in? So you'll see a box with a green header, and it's asking you, where does this imaginary invertebrate live? Is it in the maritime forest, the beach, deep ocean, a volcano, or outer space? So go ahead, you've got about 15 seconds to get your votes in, and we'll go with whichever one gets the most votes is what we'll have Ipsita draw for us. Okay, 5 more seconds. Make your vote count. I see a few more coming in. It's pretty mixed right now. They're only one vote away from each other. So if you have an opinion, now's your chance to let us know. Awesome, it looks like we've got most folks. We're gonna end polling and share the results. Okay, Ipsita, it seems like most people, it was an even tie between deep ocean and volcano. So why don't we go with deep ocean? So while Ipsita is starting to draw in our habitat, our next question to you is about what this animal looks like. So I'm gonna ask you, and this one will have two questions on the same poll. So here's the questions. What shape is its body? Do you want it to be a circle, an oval, a square? These are two hard words, but trapezoid or rhombus, or a heart. So you can add those in, and then once you've chosen what shape you want, you can also let us know what color you want. It's all the colors of the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, black, brown, white. You can choose whatever colors you want this animal to be. Wonderful, I can see you've got about half of our votes in. And if you all decide to make an invertebrate at home, you could either draw it the way that Ipsita is doing. You could have some pencil and paper, crayons, or you could actually sculpt your drawing as well, your invertebrate. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and end polling and share the results. So it looks like the most popular by far was the oval shape. Oh wow, and color is closely tied. It looks like we can go with purple for color. And so as Ipsita is drawing this, I think something that's really interesting is that a lot of the animals that we know the names of on the entire Earth are invertebrates. Over 90% of all the animals are invertebrates. And there are tons of different body shapes and colors and behaviors, super diverse group of animals. And there's more species of invertebrates that live on land than in the ocean. But in the ocean, there's a lot more variety in terms of body shapes. Okay, so our next question is gonna have to do with movement. So how does this animal move? Is it gonna swim, walk, fly, hop, slide? Maybe it doesn't move at all. And you can go ahead, you can add that in the poll. And once you've chosen what you want, you can also think about what body parts would this invertebrate need in order to do that movement. So if it's swimming, what kind of body parts could we give it? If it's hopping, what would it need? And you can be as creative as you want. Maybe you'll give it trampoline feet or skateboard bottom for sliding, maybe fins for swimming. So you can add those in the chat box. And since Ipsita is drawing, you can put my name, you can select my name for when you do the chat, so that way I can see those and share them with her. Wonderful, it looks like we've got most folks voting. So I'm gonna go ahead and give you just 2 more seconds if you wanna add your thoughts here. I'm gonna end the poll and share results. Cool, so it looks like swimming is the most popular one. And I'm gonna check in the chat and see if anyone had suggestions for how we can make this. Oh, cool, so we have 3 options for how we can make this animal swim: trampoline feet, octopus arms, or fins. Since an octopus is a type of invertebrate, and there are a number of different kinds of swimming invertebrates that have long, wiggly arms. Ipsita, let's go with long, wiggly arms for our invertebrate. And if you're at home and you're on a computer, you can actually move that chat box around so that you can see the drawing behind. If you're on a phone, the chat box might take up most of the screen, but you can always hit the word close if you want to see the drawing underneath. Okay, so this question, and you can choose multiple options for it. How does this animal defend itself? Coloration, claws, stinger, a shell, or spines? Wonderful, I can already see some quick responses of people that are adding them in there. Very cool. About 10 more seconds. Oh, I like, while we're getting answers in here, there was an option for a motor was another suggestion for how to make the animal swim, which I think is very creative. Okay, last 2 seconds. Get your vote in now. We are ending polling and sharing results. So all across the board, but most popular was a stinger. So Ipsita, we need a stinger on our invertebrate. And then last but not least, what does this animal eat? What is its diet? So this poll is going to ask you, does it eat grass, flowers, fish, clams, or bacteria? And similar to the movement question, if you have ideas of what Ipsita should draw so that it can actually eat whatever it is that you choose, you can put that in the chat box as well. About 15 seconds left. Nice job on the stinger, Ipsita. That looks very fierce. Our invertebrate can definitely protect itself now. Okay, 2 seconds. Get your votes in. And we're wrapping it up. We're ending the poll. We're sharing results. And it looks like fish is the most popular option. And let me check in the chat box if anyone had suggestions of what kind of a body part it will need to eat fish. I haven't seen any responses yet. Oh, perfect. Actually, I got a couple of really great ones. So someone said a beak, someone said sharp teeth. So Ipsita, you can choose either of those that you would like to draw onto our invertebrate. An invertebrate that I know of that has a beak that it uses to eat fish are squid and octopus too, which is pretty cool. Wonderful. And then while Ipsita is drawing on our beak, what should we call this invertebrate? So in science, if you find a new species, a lot of times you get to actually name it. So in the chat box, let us know what we should name our invertebrate. And I have been so thrilled with all of the creative suggestions that you all had as a group. So we have one suggestion for a kraken, another one for octopod, verdi, octodude. These are fantastic. Why don't we, duckfish. So Ipsita, you can choose whichever one you want. Maybe octodude. The first part spelled like octopus. Okay, so while Ipsita is naming our invertebrate, I'm going to go ahead and put in the chat box a link to an evaluation. So we really value your feedback on these virtual programs, and we'll use that for planning for fall. And we also have some activity sheets. So if you had fun and you wanted to do this at home and you wanted some examples of the prompts that we asked of, like, where does the animal live, and how to compare those to adaptations that horseshoe crabs have, you can download that from the chat box. And just a reminder that chat box will disappear at the end of the program. So go ahead now and either click that link for the adults, or you can copy and paste it into a new tab. The same for the evaluation. And go ahead and give Ipsita a big round of applause for bravely drawing live from your suggestions. And we hope that you're inspired and make your own invertebrate at home. And if you had fun, you can join us next week. Tuesday, we're going to be sampling off of the dock at 11 a.m. virtually, and looking at some barnacles and other invertebrates. And then on Thursday, we are going to be looking at sharks. We won't be looking at any live sharks. We'll mostly be looking at rays. We're looking at pictures of sharks and drawing them together. So bring your art supplies for that one. And a thank you to our friends of the aquarium that do help support and make it possible to do these expanded virtual programs. You can become a friend by going onto our website. And also on our website, you can find ways to connect with us on our social media, sign up for additional public programs, or learn about our volunteer and internship opportunities. So we'll give you just a few more seconds to snag those links out of the chat box. And then thank you all so much for coming, and we'll see you later, alligator. See you next week.